So today's video is about order of operations. So what is the order of operations? It's the order in which you solve math problems. And why do we need the order of operations? It's to ensure that no matter how many different people solve a particular math problem, that they all come up with the same answer. So basically it gives you some rules to let you know in what order you need to solve a series of operations so that everyone gets the same answer in the end. So the order of operations, and I know you've heard it before, PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. The first letter P stands for parentheses. And you want to make sure you answer everything inside of the parentheses first. And even when you're inside of the parentheses, you always have to make sure that you're still following the order of operations. After you've taken care of the parentheses, the next thing you want to take care of are your exponents. You do all the exponents next. That means if there are several exponents in the problem, you take care of all the exponents before you move on to the next step. After the exponents is multiplication and division. And you multiply and divide in order from left to right. So even though in the little phrase, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, the M, the my comes before the dear, multiplication does not always come before division. So after you've taken care of the parentheses and after you've taken care of the exponents, then you're actually going to take care of the multiplication and division in order from left to right. Sometimes the multiplication will come first. Sometimes the division might come first. So you don't always multiply before you divide, but that's a common mistake students make. After you've taken care of all the multiplication and division, the next step is to take care of the addition and the subtraction. And again, even with addition and subtraction, you do that in order from left to right. So even though Aunt comes before Sally, you don't always add before you subtract. You have to take care of it in order from left to right. Sometimes addition comes first, and sometimes subtraction comes first. It just depends on the problem. So let's do some examples. So this first example is when there's an exponent outside the parentheses. And this may be new to you guys this year. So a common thing that you might see in an order of operations problem is where they've given you a parentheses and then they've placed an exponent on the outside of the parentheses. And so I'm going to show you how do you solve that type of problem. So my first step is parentheses. I have to take care of what's inside of the parentheses first. So I have to do this 25 minus 21, and we know that will give us 4. So once I take care of everything that's in the parentheses, whatever answer I get is going to be taken to the exponent that was outside of the parentheses. Because what this means is whatever's inside of the parentheses needs to be taken to the third power. So since 25 minus 21 is 4, after I take care of that, it's going to now become 4 to the third power. And then as you're moving along, you need to keep bringing things down. So once you take care of something, you want to bring everything else down, everything you haven't taken care of. So we've done the parentheses. So now we don't need to worry about that anymore, but we haven't done the subtraction, the addition, or the multiplication. So we're simply going to bring that down until we get to it. So then our next step is to take care of the exponent. So now we have 4 to the third power, which is the same as 4 times 4 times 4, which is not 12. We know 4 times 4 is 16, and then 16 times 4 is actually 64. So then there's our next step. So now we know that 4 to the third power equals 64. So we've taken care of the exponent. And again, we're going to bring everything else down because we haven't taken care of that yet. So as we look at our problem, now we have to look for any multiplication and division. And I see I have multiplication here. So I'm going to take care of that next. So I'm going to do 3 times 5, which we all know gives you 15. So this becomes our fourth step. So now after I've taken care of that, again, I bring everything else down that I have not already taken care of. So now that I've done the multiplication, now I'm left with 64 minus 37 plus 15. And this is an example of what I was talking about in the last slide, that subtraction sometimes will come before addition. And when you see a problem like that, you're not going to do the addition first and then subtract. You're actually going to do the subtraction first and then do the addition. So we're going to do 64 minus 37 first, and that's actually going to be our next step, and that's going to give us 27, and then we're going to bring down the plus 15. now we're on to our very last step. So now we're simply going to add 27 plus 15, and that gives us 42, which means that our final answer is 42. So 25 minus 21 to the third power minus 37 plus 3 times 5 gives us a final answer of 42. Our next example is when there are order of operations inside the parentheses. So sometimes you'll see inside of the parentheses that they're going to ask you to do more than just one operation. They may ask you to do several operations. So even inside of the parentheses, you have to always be following the order of operations. Now you're going to take care of what's in the parentheses first. Do everything inside of the parentheses following the order of operations, and then you'll take care of everything that's outside of the parentheses. So our very first step is that we're going to start with our parentheses. 3 squared plus 6 times 7 divided by 3. And now when we're inside of the parentheses, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take care of the exponent, because our exponent, the e, comes before addition, multiplication, or division. So we're going to have to take care of that exponent first. And then we'll just bring the 245 down for right now. Now we know that 3 squared equals 3 times 3, which we know is equal to 9. So now we know that this equals 9, and we're going to bring down everything else in the parentheses and the 245, and that's going to be our next step. So now we know that this equals 9, and we're still not done with the parentheses yet. We still got some more stuff to do. So then we've taken care of the 9. So now the next thing is we've got to take care of the multiplication. So we've got to do this 6 times 7 next. And we know that 6 times 7 gives us 42. So then 42 becomes our next number inside of the parentheses. Again, I'm going to bring everything else down. I'm going to bring the 9 down. I'm going to bring down the divided by 3. And I'm going to bring down the 245. So then in our next step, we're looking and we're going to say, okay, I have an addition and I have division. Well, again, I have to follow the order of operations, and division comes before addition. So I have to divide by 3 first. So I know 42 divided by 3 will give me 14. And again, I'm going to bring that 9 down, bring that 14 down, and now I'm going to make sure I bring down the 245. In my next step, I want to still take care of the parentheses. I'm not done with the parentheses yet. My last step inside the parentheses is that I've got to do 9 plus 14, which we know will give us 23, and then we're going to bring down the 245. Now we're on to our last step. So now we're going to do 245 minus 23. And that actually gives us 222, which means that our final answer is 222. So 245 minus parentheses 3 squared plus 6 times 7 divided by 3 gives us a final answer of 222. So the main things that you want to remember with the order of operations is that you want to remember PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. Make sure that you remember to add and subtract in order from left to right, multiply and divide in order from left to right. And make sure that even if you're doing the order of even if you have a parentheses with several things on the inside of it, you have to follow the order of operations even inside of a parentheses. So then to finish out our video, make sure you teach the tiger something new that you learned.